please stop for a moment. Do not scroll. Do not multitask. Just be here. I know you didn't plan to watch this, and I know part of you is already deciding whether to stay or leave. But before you do either, let me speak to you calmly and honestly. Hello. I'm glad you're here. Not because everything in your life is perfect. Not because you feel confident right now, but because you are still listening even after disappointment, silence, and delay. Let me ask you something gently. When was the last time you felt like life almost changed, but didn't? A moment where you thought, this is it, and then something blocked it. Again, you didn't fail. You didn't miss your chance. And you weren't ignored. What happened was more precise than that. Closed doors are not random. They don't appear just to hurt you. They appear when timing, alignment, or readiness is incomplete. And here's the part that may unsettle you. Most people only notice the door that shut. Very few notice what quietly started shifting the moment it did. That shift is why you're here now. Ask yourself this honestly without answering out loud. Why does this moment feel different from other videos you skipped? Why did your body slow down before your mind agreed? Why does it feel like this message is speaking near your life, not at it? Nothing dramatic has been said yet. No promises, no claims, just awareness. And awareness always arrives before change. In the next phase, you'll understand why certain doors had to close first, and why reopening them would have limited you instead of helping you. But before we continue, mark this moment. Comment the word pause. Type 1 when you are ready to move forward. Phase 2. The closed doors that were never meant to stay open. Now listen carefully. This phase is not comfortable, but it is necessary. Because before any door opens, you must understand why so many stayed shut. Think back. Not emotionally accurately. There were moments you were qualified. Moments you were ready. Moments where logic said, this should have worked. Yet it didn't. And the most dangerous thought you ever accepted was this: maybe something is wrong with me. That thought did more damage than the closed doors ever did. Here is the truth most people never hear. Some doors close not because you are weak, but because you are growing beyond what they can contain. A small room always feels safe, until you realize you can no longer stand upright inside it. Those doors you begged to reopen, they belong to rooms that would have forced you to shrink. And shrinking slowly destroys a person. You didn't notice it at the time, but each closed door removed a version of your future that required you to compromise yourself. Let me ask you something serious now. If that opportunity had worked, if that relationship had stayed, if that plan had succeeded, would you truly be at peace today? Or would you still feel like something was missing, unnamed, unresolved? Be honest, because peace is the real test, not success. What most people don't realize is this: life closes doors in patterns, and patterns only appear when something bigger is being arranged. Repeated closure is not rejection. It is redirection with urgency. And here is the unsettling part. When doors close back to back, it means your next opening cannot be ordinary. Ordinary doors don't require this much preparation. Ordinary paths don't demand this much patience. Ordinary outcomes don't feel this heavy before they arrive. You are not waiting because life is slow. You are waiting because precision takes time. And what is being prepared for you cannot afford misalignment. In the next phase, you will understand why this waiting period felt draining, why your energy changed, and why silence surrounded you more than answers. But before moving forward, acknowledge what just landed. Comment the word closed. Type 2 to continue. Phase 3. The silent shift you were never warned about. Stay with this carefully, because what I'm about to explain is subtle, and subtle truths are the ones most people miss. After the doors closed, something changed inside you. Not suddenly, not dramatically, quietly. You may not have had the words for it, but you felt it. Your energy didn't disappear, it redirected. Your motivation didn't die, it matured. Your patience didn't weaken, it was forced to grow. And that's why this phase felt heavier than the others. Let me ask you something important. Did you notice how noise started to bother you more? How shallow conversations felt exhausting? How things that once distracted you no longer worked? That wasn't boredom. That wasn't burnout. That was transition. When a person is being repositioned, life removes excess stimulation. It strips away urgency, creates silence. Silence is not punishment. Silence is calibration. This is where many people panic. They assume something is wrong because nothing is loud anymore. No clear signs, no dramatic confirmations, no visible movement. But here's the truth most people never learn. Big shifts announce themselves quietly because they don't need validation. They need alignment. And alignment takes place internally before anything external can move. This phase often feels lonely, not because you are alone, but because you are no longer meant to be surrounded by everyone. Some connections faded. Some conversations stopped. Some people no longer got you. That wasn't loss. That was separation. You were being removed from influences that could not follow where you're going. And here's the part that might unsettle you. If this phase had been comfortable, you would have settled. If it had been exciting, you would have rushed. If it had been clear, you wouldn't have grown. Confusion was necessary. Slowness was necessary. Silence was necessary. Because what opens next will require discernment, not impulse. Strength, not urgency. Presence, not pressure. You are not behind. You are being prepared in a way that cannot be rushed. In the next phase, you'll understand why timing matters more now than effort, why impatience would cost you, and why this opening will not announce itself loudly. But before moving forward, mark this shift. Comment the word shift. Type 3 to continue. Phase 4. The opening that does not announce itself. Read this slowly, because what opens next in your life will not arrive with noise. And that is exactly why most people miss it. You were taught to look for signs that shout. Big moments, clear invitations, obvious yes or no answers. But this opening works differently. After a long period of waiting, the mind expects drama. The heart expects confirmation. The ego expects recognition. And when none of that appears, doubt steps in. This is where timing becomes more important than effort. Let me ask you something honestly. How many times did you push something that was not ready, just because you were tired of waiting? How many times did impatience disguise itself as courage? This next door will not open for force. It will not respond to desperation. And it will not stay open for hesitation either. That is why awareness is critical now. The opening comes quietly, often disguised as something ordinary. A conversation that feels different. A thought that won't leave you. An option you would have ignored before. A pause instead of a push. Most people miss their moment because they are looking for relief, not alignment. Relief wants the pain to end. Alignment wants the lesson to complete. And only one of those leads to lasting change. Here is something important you need to understand. The door opening now does not replace the old ones. It makes them irrelevant. That's why reopening the past will no longer feel right. That's why returning to what once felt familiar now feels wrong. That's why forcing old plans feels exhausting instead of motivating. You are not losing options. You are narrowing toward precision. And precision feels restrictive before it feels powerful. This phase is dangerous for one reason. It tempts you to move too early or too late. Too early and you repeat the cycle. Too late and the door closes quietly. That is why discernment matters more than confidence right now. In the final phase, you will understand what this opening actually requires from you, what choice activates it, and why this moment is about responsibility, not rescue. Before continuing, acknowledge this truth. Comment the word ready. Type 4 to move forward. Phase 5. The turning point you were being prepared for. Now read this with full attention, because this is where everything you felt but couldn't explain finally makes sense. The turning point you are standing in right now is not dramatic. It is not loud, and it is not external. It is internal choice becoming alignment. For a long time, you were asking for change while holding on to familiarity. You were asking for growth while protecting comfort. You were asking for answers while avoiding responsibility. That does not make you weak. That makes you human. But life responds only when the request and the readiness finally match. This is what destiny turning actually means. It does not mean something appears out of nowhere. It means something appears when you stop negotiating with what you already know. Let me say this clearly. The doors opening now do not require you to become someone new. They require you to stop returning to who you were. That is the real cost. Not effort, not struggle, not waiting. Release. Release the version of yourself that kept explaining. Release the habit of second-guessing what you already understood. Release the belief that timing works against you. Because timing does not work against awareness. It works with it. This is why the preparation phase was long. This is why clarity came before movement. This is why silence shaped you more than answers ever could. You are not being pushed forward. You are being trusted with choice. And choice is heavier than rescue. What opens next will respond to consistency, not intensity. To honesty, not urgency. To presence, not pressure. Once you move from this place, things will not need to convince you anymore. They will align. This is the moment where destiny turns quietly, not because something magical happened, but because you finally stopped resisting what you already knew. Mark this completion. Comment the word open. Type 5. Phase 6. The responsibility that comes after the door opens. Stay present. Because this phase is the one almost no one talks about. Not because it's mysterious, but because it's demanding. When a door opens after a long period of closure, most people expect relief. They expect things to become easier. They expect momentum to carry them. They expect certainty to replace doubt. But the truth is different. Open doors do not remove responsibility. They increase it. This is where many people quietly step back without realizing it. Not because they can't succeed, but because success now requires consistency instead of hope. Let me explain. When nothing is working, effort feels heroic. When something finally starts aligning, effort becomes expected. This is the shift that separates wishers from builders. Ask yourself this carefully. Are you prepared to show up when motivation is gone? Are you willing to move forward without constant reassurance? Can you stay grounded when progress becomes normal instead of exciting? Because what opens now will not chase you. It will respond to how you carry yourself. The door is not testing your desire. It is testing your discipline. And here is the uncomfortable truth. The reason the preparation phase took so long is because what comes next does not allow repeated exits and re-entries. You cannot keep stepping in and out of this version of your life. You either commit to alignment or you slowly drift back to familiarity. That is why awareness mattered more than speed. That is why clarity came before action. That is why silence shaped your judgment. This phase asks for maturity, not intensity. For patience, not pressure. For responsibility, not rescue. And responsibility feels heavy at first because it removes excuses. You no longer get to say you didn't know. You no longer get to wait for permission. You no longer get to blame timing. You are standing in informed choice now. What you do repeatedly from this point forward will decide whether this opening becomes a passage or just another moment you remember. And this is where intention matters. Not loud intention, not public intention, private, consistent intention. Before moving forward, ground yourself here. Comment the word responsible. Type 6. Phase 7. The point where most people turn back. Read this carefully, because this phase does not look dangerous. It looks ordinary, and that is why it stops more people than failure ever did. After the door opens and responsibility settles in, there is a quiet moment where nothing dramatic happens. No applause, no sudden proof, no instant confirmation that you chose correctly, just continuation. This is where doubt tries one last time. Not loud doubt, not fearful doubt, subtle doubt. It sounds like logic. It sounds like reason. It sounds like practicality. It asks questions like, is this really working? Shouldn't I be further by now? What if I misread everything? What if I was wrong about this opening? This is not intuition. This is the mind adjusting to a new normal. When you leave survival mode, the brain looks for familiar tension. When it doesn't find it, it creates questions. Many people interpret this moment as a sign to stop. They slow down. They hesitate. They begin revisiting old options, just in case. And without realizing it, they step back toward the door they already outgrew. Let me say this clearly. Comfort after chaos feels empty at first. Stability after struggle feels suspicious. Peace after pressure feels undeserved. But none of that means you are wrong. It means you are no longer fighting, and the absence of conflict feels unfamiliar. This is the moment where discipline matters more than emotion. Not force, not intensity, consistency. You don't need to do more. You need to stop undoing what you already chose. This phase is not about proving anything. It is about maintaining direction when excitement fades. The door does not close here. People walk away from it, quietly, logically, convinced they are being careful. But careful is not always wise. Wise is staying aligned even when nothing is pushing you forward. This is where destiny stabilizes. Not through a breakthrough, but through commitment without drama. Before moving forward, recognize this moment. Comment the word steady. To continue, Phase 8. The stabilization that looks like nothing is happening. This is the phase that tests perception. Because from the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. No major shifts, no visible breakthroughs, no dramatic results to point at. And yet, this is where everything is locking into place. When movement becomes subtle, most people assume progress has stopped. But real alignment doesn't rush. It settles. Think about this carefully. When something is unstable, it makes noise. When something is weak, it demands attention. When something is uncertain, it needs constant reassurance. Stability does none of that. Stability is quiet. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't compete. It doesn't prove. And that silence can feel unsettling if you're used to chaos. This is where impatience disguises itself as ambition. It urges you to add more, push harder, change direction, create urgency where none is required. But urgency now would fracture what is forming, because what is stabilizing is not an event. It is a foundation. Foundations are invisible once the structure stands, but without them, nothing holds. This phase asks you to trust continuity over excitement, repetition over novelty, depth over speed. Ask yourself this honestly. Can you keep moving forward without needing constant confirmation? Can you respect slow progress without interpreting it as failure? Can you stay committed when improvement feels ordinary? This is where long-term outcomes are decided. Not by talent, not by luck, not by intensity, by patience with process. The door did not open to entertain you. It opened to reposition you. And repositioning takes time to settle. Like standing on new ground, your balance needs adjustment. If you rush now, you destabilize what is finally holding you. This phase is not empty. It is dense. So dense that movement feels minimal because energy is being distributed evenly. Before moving forward, anchor yourself here. Comment the word stable. To connect. Phase 9. The moment you realize you are no longer who you were. This phase arrives without announcement. There is no single event that marks it. No clear before and after moment. No dramatic realization that stops you in your tracks. Instead, it shows up quietly in how you respond. You notice it one day when something that once triggered you no longer does. When a situation that used to shake your confidence now feels manageable. When an old fear appears, but it no longer controls your decision. That is when you realize something important has changed. Not outside, inside. You didn't become louder. You didn't become more aggressive. You didn't become harder. You became steadier. And steadiness changes everything. This is the point where people around you may start reacting differently. Some with curiosity. Some with distance. Some with subtle resistance. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your energy no longer matches old expectations. You are no longer seeking permission. You are no longer explaining yourself. You are no longer negotiating with doubt the way you used to. This can feel strange at first. You might wonder if you're becoming detached, if you're losing something, if you're becoming less emotional. You're not. You're becoming selective. Selective with your time. Selective with your attention. Selective with where you invest your energy. And this selectivity is not selfish. It is necessary. Because the door you walked through did not just lead to opportunity. It led to responsibility for how you carry yourself. Here is something important to understand. Growth does not always add. Sometimes it removes. It removes reactions that no longer serve you. It removes urgency that clouds judgment. It removes attachment to outcomes that once defined your worth. And when those things leave, space opens. That space can feel unfamiliar, even empty. But it is not emptiness. It is capacity. Capacity for better decisions. Capacity for clearer boundaries. Capacity for outcomes that do not require self-betrayal. This is the phase where you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What does this require from me now?" That shift is irreversible. Once you see yourself clearly, you cannot unsee it. Before continuing, acknowledge this change. Comment the word changed. To continue. Phase 10. When the world starts responding differently to you. This is where the shift becomes visible, not because you announce it, but because life begins to meet you differently. You may not notice it immediately. In fact, if you're looking for it, you'll miss it. It shows up in subtleties. People listen more closely when you speak. Opportunities come without force. Resistance appears less dramatic, less personal. Not because the world changed overnight, but because your relationship with it did. You are no longer moving from urgency. You are no longer acting from fear of loss. You are no longer proving anything. And the world responds to that posture. Here's something most people never realize. Life mirrors certainty, not desire. Desire begs. Certainty attracts. When you stopped chasing outcomes and started standing in alignment, the pressure lifted. That pressure was never from outside. It was internal friction. Friction between who you were becoming and who you kept trying to remain. Once that friction eased, movement became natural. This is the phase where synchronicities feel quieter but more accurate. Not miracles, not coincidences, precision. Things line up not dramatically, but efficiently. The right conversation at the right time. The right delay preventing the wrong step. The right opening appearing when you're calm enough to notice it. And here is the important part. This phase does not reward overthinking. It rewards presence. If you start questioning everything again, you create noise. If you start doubting the process, you weaken momentum. This is not a time to analyze your transformation. It is a time to live it. You don't need to explain yourself to the past. You don't need to justify your pace to anyone. You don't need validation for what already feels right. What is unfolding now does not need drama to be real. It needs consistency. This is where destiny doesn't feel mystical anymore. It feels practical. And that is how you know it's authentic. Before moving forward, acknowledge this interaction with life. Comment the word aligned. To connect. Phase 11. When you realize this was never about speed, but direction. This phase arrives with clarity, not excitement. It is the moment you finally understand why rushing was never working for you. Why forcing outcomes always created resistance. Why impatience kept leading you back to the same lessons in different forms. You see it now. Speed was never the issue. Direction was. For a long time, you were moving fast in directions that did not match who you were becoming. And movement without alignment only creates exhaustion. This is why slowing down changed everything. Slowness gave you perspective. Perspective gave you discernment. Discernment gave you peace. And peace is not passive. Peace is focused. In this phase, you stop measuring progress by how quickly things happen and start measuring it by how little you need to compromise yourself. You no longer ask, how soon will this work? You ask, is this still true to what I know? That shift changes your decisions. You choose differently. You say no faster. You walk away sooner. You commit more deliberately. And because of that, your energy stops leaking. Let me say something important here. Not everything that moves you forward will feel exciting. Not everything that excites you will move you forward. You can tell the difference now. That's growth. This is also the phase where comparison loses its grip. Other people's timelines stop disturbing you. Other people's wins stop confusing you. Because you finally understand, their direction is not yours. And it never needed to be. You are no longer late. You are no longer behind. You are exactly where your awareness can support you. And awareness always sets the pace. This phase does not demand action. It refines intention. It asks you to move with clarity instead of urgency, with confidence instead of noise, with patience instead of pressure. Once direction is right, speed becomes irrelevant. Before moving forward, acknowledge this understanding. Comment the word direction. To continue. Phase 12. Why this moment is asking for a response, not belief. Read this slowly, because this phase is not about understanding anymore. It is about participation. Up to now, everything you've heard could be absorbed quietly. You could agree internally. You could nod without moving. You could stay invisible. But moments of real alignment always ask for one thing in return: a response. Not to prove faith, not to show loyalty, not to impress anyone. A response to anchor awareness. Here is something very few people understand. The mind forgets insights quickly, not because they aren't powerful, but because they were never marked. Unmarked realizations fade. Marked ones integrate. That is why this moment is asking you to do something simple but intentional. When you comment a specific word, you are not signaling to the algorithm. You are not pleasing the creator. You are creating a pause where your awareness locks in. That word becomes a marker. Later, days or weeks from now, when doubt tries to rewrite what you understood today, your mind will remember that you stopped here, that you chose to acknowledge instead of scroll, that you recognized direction instead of noise. The word is not magic. The act is. Now listen carefully to why the next part matters. Typing the next phase number is not about continuation. It is about commitment to sequence. Most people want results without order. They skip steps. They rush meaning. They want conclusions without process. But this entire shift worked because it unfolded in order. Typing the next number is a decision to respect timing, to move step by step, to not jump ahead emotionally or mentally. It is a signal to yourself that you are willing to move with clarity, not impulse. This is how alignment is protected, through small, deliberate acts, not declarations, not promises, consistency. In the next phase, you will understand what this alignment now asks from your daily life, how to protect it from old patterns, and why simplicity, not intensity, is the key moving forward. But before that, mark this moment properly. Comment the word mark, because this is where awareness becomes anchored instead of forgotten. Then type 12, because choosing sequence over speed is how you keep what just opened. Only then move forward. Phase 13. What this alignment now requires from your daily life. This phase is where everything becomes practical, not inspirational, not symbolic, not conceptual, real. Because alignment that stays only in thought slowly dissolves. Alignment that enters daily behavior becomes permanent. Up to now, the shift happened internally. Your perception changed. Your reactions softened. Your direction clarified. Now comes the part that determines whether this stays or quietly fades. Daily life. Here is the truth that surprises most people. Major turning points are protected by small habits, not big decisions. People think destiny is secured by one brave choice. It isn't. It's secured by what you repeat when no one is watching. This phase asks you to become conscious of three things. First, how you start your day. Not what you plan. What you allow into your mind before direction sets in. Second, how you respond when things don't go perfectly. Not whether you stay positive, but whether you stay grounded. Third, how often you return to old mental shortcuts. Overthinking, second-guessing, seeking reassurance. These patterns don't disappear automatically. They lose power only when they are noticed and interrupted. This is why simplicity matters now. You don't need to do more. You need to remove what pulls you out of alignment. Less noise, less reaction, less explanation, more presence, more follow-through, more trust in what has already stabilized. Here is something important. The reason this alignment feels calm is because it is sustainable. Anything that demands constant emotional intensity eventually collapses. What you are building now is meant to last. And lasting things move quietly. Now listen carefully to why you are being asked to comment again. The word you comment in this phase is not a declaration. It is a reminder of the quality this phase requires. When life becomes busy again, when distractions return, when urgency tries to pull you back, that word will remind you how to move. The word is practice. Because alignment is not proven by understanding. It is proven by repetition. Now, the reason you are asked to type the next phase number matters even more. Phase 14 is not about adding anything new. It is about protecting what you now have. Typing the next number is a conscious choice to move forward with care, not excitement. It signals that you are ready to learn how to guard this alignment without becoming rigid, and how to grow without losing balance. So do this deliberately. Comment the word practice, because this phase lives in what you repeat, not what you feel. Then type 13, because staying present with each step is how this turning point becomes permanent. Phase 14, how to protect this alignment without losing yourself. This phase exists for one reason only, to prevent you from undoing what you have built. Because the most common mistake after growth is overcorrection. People either relax too much or become rigid. Both break alignment. Protection does not mean control. It means awareness with flexibility. Let me explain. When you first notice life responding differently to you, there is a temptation to lock everything down, to guard every decision, to analyze every feeling, to question every step. That is fear pretending to be responsibility. True alignment does not need constant monitoring. It needs honest check-ins. This phase teaches you how to stay open without being pulled off course. The key is knowing the difference between adjustment and avoidance. Adjustment refines direction. Avoidance escapes discomfort. You will still feel uncertainty at times. You will still make small mistakes. That does not mean alignment is gone. It means you are human inside growth. Here is a grounding truth. Alignment is not fragile. It only becomes fragile when you treat it like something that can disappear overnight. What destabilizes people is not loss of direction. It is loss of trust in themselves. This is why self-trust is central now. Not confidence, not motivation. Trust. Trust that you can correct without collapsing. Trust that you can pause without quitting. Trust that you can adjust without starting over. This is also the phase where boundaries become clear. You stop over-explaining. You stop justifying your pace. You stop absorbing urgency that isn't yours. Not aggressively, naturally. Your yes becomes calmer. Your no becomes cleaner. And life respects that clarity. Now, listen carefully to why the comment matters in this phase. The word you are asked to comment is not about action. It is about restraint. Most people think growth is about doing more. Real growth is often about doing less, but doing it intentionally. The word is guard. Not to isolate, not to harden, but to remain aware of what pulls you off balance. And the reason you are asked to type the next phase number is this. Phase 15 explains how to expand from this place without losing stability. Expansion without grounding leads to collapse. Grounding without expansion leads to stagnation. Typing the next number signals readiness to grow carefully, not recklessly. So take this step consciously. Comment the word guard, because protection now means awareness, not fear. Then type 14, because respecting sequence is how alignment stays intact. Phase 15, how to expand without returning to old patterns. This phase matters because expansion is where most people slip. Not at the beginning, not during struggle, but right when things start working. Growth creates space. Space invites possibility. Possibility can quietly invite old habits back in. That's why this phase exists. Expansion is not about doing everything. It's about doing the right things from the right place. Let me explain what often goes wrong. When alignment brings results, people assume intensity created them. So they increase intensity, more effort, more urgency, more pressure. And without realizing it, they reintroduce the very patterns that once blocked them. This phase asks for a different approach. You expand by depth, not speed. By refinement, not force. By presence, not performance. Ask yourself this: can I grow without rushing? Can I succeed without abandoning myself? Can I move forward without recreating stress as motivation? These questions protect you. Expansion now should feel steady, not frantic. Challenging, not overwhelming. Stretching, not draining. If it feels like survival again, something is off. Here is a key principle to remember. What required healing cannot require hustle to maintain. If something aligned brought peace, it must be sustained with clarity, not chaos. This is also where discernment sharpens. Not every opportunity is meant to be taken. Not every door that opens is yours. Not every invitation aligns with your direction. Saying no here is not fear. It is maturity. And maturity always looks quieter than ambition. Now, pay close attention to why this interaction matters. The word you are asked to comment is not about motivation. It is about pace. When you comment this word, you are reminding yourself how expansion should feel. The word is steady, because steady growth compounds. Erratic growth exhausts. Now, the reason you are asked to type the next phase number, phase 16, is about integration. Not adding more, not expanding further, but allowing what you've built to fully settle into who you are. Typing the next number is a choice to value integration over acceleration. So take this step with intention. Comment the word steady, because your pace now protects your progress. Then type 15, because growth that lasts respects its own rhythm. Phase 16, integration. How to make this shift part of who you are. This is the phase where everything becomes internalized. Up to now, you have observed, reflected, prepared, stabilized, protected, and expanded. You have moved deliberately through phases, each building on the last. But insight alone does not create lasting change. It must be woven into daily life, into how you think, respond, and exist. Integration is not dramatic. It is quiet. It is subtle. It is cumulative. Notice how your reactions have shifted over time. Notice how you no longer respond in the same ways to triggers, stress, or urgency. Notice how your attention flows differently, how your decisions feel lighter, more deliberate, more aligned. That is integration beginning to happen. This is also where many people fail, because they mistake temporary clarity for permanent transformation. Temporary clarity is a spark. Integration is a sustained flame. Let me explain why this phase is critical. Every previous phase prepared you for consistent action, but consistent action without internalization will eventually crumble. When your thoughts, your routines, your relationships, and your environment all operate from the old patterns, even subtle habits can undo months or years of work. Integration creates immunity against those old habits. It builds an internal architecture so that decisions no longer feel like struggles, they feel natural. Your priorities naturally align. Your reactions naturally stabilize. Your energy naturally flows where it is meant to go. Now listen carefully, because this part is essential. The word you are asked to comment is not a signal to anyone else. It is a personal anchor, a physical acknowledgement that you are choosing to allow this shift to fully settle. It locks awareness into the subconscious. It reminds your mind and your body that change is permanent, not temporary. The word is settle, because integration is about allowing growth to rest in you, not forcing it. And the reason you are asked to type the next phase number is not arbitrary. Phase 17 will show you how to sustain momentum while keeping the clarity and alignment you've built. Typing the number now signals to yourself that you are willing to honor continuity over novelty, sequence over shortcuts, and awareness over impulse. Comment the word settle, because allowing transformation to rest in your life ensures permanence. Then type 16, because sequence protects the momentum you have worked so hard to create. Phase 17, sustaining momentum without distraction or decay. This phase is where alignment meets real-world pressure. Integration alone does not guarantee permanence. Even when clarity feels solid, external forces, distractions, stress, old habits test whether what you have built can survive in the day-to-day world. Here is the truth most people never hear. Momentum is not energy alone. Momentum is intention repeated consistently over time. It is the subtle accumulation of decisions aligned with your internal truth, not the occasional burst of effort or sudden inspiration. You may notice it now. Life is not dramatic. Doors are opening quietly. Opportunities arrive, but not in the forms you expect. People respond, but not as loudly as before. The world seems slower, calmer, and yet more deliberate. That is intentional. This is the phase where your ability to stay engaged without being reactive is tested. The mind wants constant validation. The ego wants recognition. The environment wants your attention pulled in directions that do not align with your internal shift. Sustaining momentum means choosing repeatedly, with awareness, the path that matches your growth. Ask yourself these questions. Can I maintain this alignment even when external pressure increases? Can I act consistently even when my emotions fluctuate? Can I protect my energy without overreacting to what others demand? Because the real danger is subtle. Not catastrophe, not obvious mistakes, but small daily compromises. They seem harmless. They feel convenient. They whisper, "Just this once, it won't matter." But small compromises compound over time. They quietly undo the structure you have built, often without you noticing until the results are visible. That is why this phase requires precision in how you spend your attention, where you invest your energy, and what you choose to reinforce mentally, emotionally, and physically. Here is the next critical element: repetition. Not loud repetition, not forced repetition. Deliberate, small, invisible repetition. Waking up with your intention intact. Responding to challenges without overreacting. Returning to clarity whenever doubt surfaces. That is momentum sustained. Now, the reason you are asked to comment a specific word in this phase is deliberate. The word is anchor, because your mind will forget the nuances of this learning. Your body will revert to old patterns under pressure. Anchoring verbally or mentally locks the awareness into your system. It is a physical marker of your commitment to momentum, not just understanding. And the reason you are asked to type the next phase number is even more critical. Phase 18 will not introduce new concepts. It will teach you how to integrate momentum into long-term vision without losing alignment, ensuring that your growth becomes durable, not temporary. Typing the next number is a choice to respect continuity over novelty, sequence over shortcuts, and presence over distraction. Comment the word anchor, because this will tie awareness and alignment to action. Then type 17, because sustaining momentum requires deliberate sequencing to prevent collapse. Phase 18. How to integrate momentum into long-term vision. Now comes the phase that defines whether your transformation lasts beyond the immediate. Momentum alone is temporary. Alignment alone is fragile. Integration alone is subtle. The combination of all three, consciously maintained, becomes durable transformation, the kind that shapes the trajectory of your life over years, not just weeks or months. This phase is about vision in motion. It is not about imagining the future. It is not about creating fantasies of what could be. It is about allowing the clarity, alignment, and momentum you have built to guide your choices consistently over time. Ask yourself honestly, are my daily actions aligned with the long-term direction I am meant to move in? Am I making decisions based on short-term comfort or long-term growth? Do my routines, my relationships, and my energy expenditure reflect the person I am becoming, not the person I used to be? This phase will feel deceptively ordinary. There are no sudden openings or dramatic signs. There are no loud confirmations. There is only repetition and refinement, day after day. And that is exactly why it is so challenging. The world constantly tests whether your focus is for the long term or just immediate gratification. It offers distractions disguised as opportunities. It tempts old habits back in under the guise of convenience. It whispers that compromise will save time, energy, or emotion. But integration and momentum now demand selective engagement. You are required to consistently return to the principles that built your shift. awareness over impulse, clarity over convenience, alignment over approval. This is where small decisions compound into a life that reflects the transformation you've achieved. It is the accumulation of tiny, deliberate choices that eventually become irreversible. And here is why the word you are asked to comment is vital. The word is vision, because vision anchors your momentum and alignment to the long-term trajectory. It reminds your mind and body that each step, no matter how small, contributes to a coherent path. Without that anchor, even progress that feels stable today can drift into chaos tomorrow. The reason you are asked to type the next phase number is critical. Phase 19 will show you how to handle unexpected shifts without breaking alignment or losing momentum. It teaches resilience in a way that preserves all the work you've done. Typing the next number is not just continuation. It is an active commitment to integrate awareness into adaptive action, ensuring your growth endures. Comment the word vision, because it aligns your present momentum with your long-term trajectory. Then type 18, because acknowledging sequence preserves the integrity of your transformation and prepares you for change without disruption.